Thank you, Donald. Good evening, everybody. Well, it's happening again. Another terrorist attack in a major European city. This time, it's Barcelona in the Catalan province of Spain. What do we know? Well, we know that a van at high speed ploughed into a crowd in the Las Ramblas area, a very upmarket, shopping, touristy type part of Barcelona. I've certainly been there. It's a lovely place to go. At least it was until this afternoon. The last reports we've heard is that one person was killed, 32 injured, at least 10 of them seriously. There's also talk of a hostage situation taking place inside a Turkish restaurant. But let's cross immediately to Tim John, LBC's reporter in Barcelona. Tim, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. The latest from me here really is that the police are still going door to door within the cordon. There is a huge cordon here all around La Ramblas. A lot of the streets around it are currently shut on lockdown. They're going door to door, checking these restaurants, tapas bars, shops, and really looking to see if any of the suspects, any of the people they're looking for in connection with this attack are holed up in there. The reason they're doing that is because many of the people, and as you said, it's a busy part of Barcelona.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people would have been there. Many people ran for cover. They were either in the restaurants or the shops already, or they darted for cover in those buildings, and the owners, managers put the shutters down and wouldn't let anyone leave. So that's kind of what's happening here at the moment. You can hear sirens in the background. That's because there are police cars, both marked and unmarked, arriving on the scene. If I just look down towards the Ramblas, and I'm quite far away now because they extended the cordon quite rapidly here, all I can see really is a sea of blue lights and police tape.
So the cordon, Tim, means that nobody can leave that area or come into that area?
Well, the people who are being allowed to leave are being escorted. Now, at the police cordon, certainly the one that I'm at, there are a few people standing in front. You know, they're clutching tissues. They're bracing themselves for the worst here this evening. They're desperate for some news. There are a couple of people who've got cars and mopeds kind of parked there, and I'm sure are desperate to get home after a day's work. But
yeah.
They're frustrated, but they have to understand, as the police are telling them, they're going nowhere for the moment.
And Tim,
no one's in, no one's out.
So the driver of the van that ploughed into the crowd, causing dozens of injuries and at least one death, he fled, I believe.
What we heard was that he fled the scene, and the police obviously then started a fairly intense manhunt to try and find that suspect. There are conflicting reports that I've just been hearing in the past few minutes that from various broadcasters here that suspect has been found somewhere, but that's not confirmed at the moment. It is quite difficult. It's quite a slow process to get that information out. But I mean, we saw this, of course, in Westminster, in Manchester, and at London Bridge just a few months ago. The police are cautious with stuff like this. They don't want to put misinformation out there. So,
yes. And,
Tim,
one last question. Is it true? Is it true, do you know, is there a siege situation, hostage situation taking place in a restaurant?
I don't know for sure. No, we're just hearing lots of reports about it.
Yes.
But obviously this is a big area, lots of cordons. Others who are reporting that may be able to see that. I certainly can't.
Tim, thank you very much. We'll be back to you very shortly. So politicians in the UK have started to give their reactions, and with me is Theo Usherwood, LBC's political editor. Theo, good evening.
Yes, the Prime Minister Theresa May has just released a very short statement to say that her thoughts are with the victim of this terrible attack in Barcelona. She's added the UK stands with Spain against terror. Meanwhile, Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the Labour Party, has also, he's tweeted, in fact, terrible reports from Barcelona. My thoughts are with those killed and injured, and the emergency services working to save lives. The leader of the SNP, the Scottish First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, earlier, a short message from her: my thoughts are with everyone affected by this horrific and mindless attack in Barcelona. I'm sure we're going to be hearing more from the main politicians throughout this evening and into tomorrow.
Theo, thank you. Don't go too far away. Any more reaction, please let us know. Well, yes, my thoughts are with the victims, with their families, and for Barcelona, which is a fabulous place to go to. But every time this happens, we get, of course, the same reactions. We get, the Prime Minister and the Mayor of London and the Leader of the Opposition and everybody saying how horrible it is and how we're united and we stand together in solidarity with whether it's Belgium, whether it's France, whether it's Spain. But nobody seems to have really any answers. And I'm interested to ask you, what can we do to protect ourselves? And I mean that not just at a national level, I mean it at an individual level too. I mean, has it reached the point where if you're walking along a busy street in a major city in Europe, that somewhere in your mind is that it might be a threat? Or do you just say, actually, in percentage terms, I'm probably still just about more likely to be struck by lightning? But, the use of vehicles as weapons has been increasingly used. Remember Bastille Day, 2016, that lorry driving along in Nice, killing 86 people. Remember Christmas, 2016, Christmas market in Berlin, 12 people killed when a lorry drove into a crowd. And this year, of course, we remember Khalid Massoud, who hired a car and drove over Westminster Bridge, and in total 6 people died in that attack. And then, 8 people were killed in central London after attackers drove a van into pedestrians on London Bridge and then went into Borough Market. And, of course, there was one where a man drove at a group of worshippers outside a mosque in North London, and one man died there too. So the use of vehicles to attack pedestrians, to attack innocent people, is clearly an increasing feature. What can we do to protect ourselves from this or anything else? I want your thoughts on this, please, on 0345 6060 973. You can text me at 84850. You can, of course, tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and you can watch us live on Facebook from here in London, and we'll be getting regular reports live from Barcelona as any news develops over the course of the next hour. And my first caller this evening, who's got some ideas for us, I hope, is Rav from Leicester. Rav, good evening.
Oh, Nigel, it's a pleasure to be speaking with you today.
Thank you. So what do we do? I mean, I made the point a moment ago that every time... I go to the European Parliament, and once a month it's in session in Strasbourg. And it seems almost every month now at the start, when the President of the Parliament calls us to order, we stand for a minute's silence, and we say we stand in solidarity with the victims.
Absolutely.
But nobody ever seems to be saying, hey, do you know what? We need to be doing something.
Yes. And I would just like to make a wider point on this, and it's probably an angle which many people probably don't like to mention, but I think we're getting at a point where society is. So, without being labelled as a prime minister or anything along them lines, I'm actually Asian, so I can't be.
Right.
But it's like the labels we get placed by society and the left. So I think we do need to talk about the Islamic problem that we have in the UK, and it's a wider point. So if you look at everything that's going on, so whether it's from suicide bombers to child grooming gangs to female mutilations to honour killings, all these events and all these kind of horrible, terrible things are happening disproportionately. And it's important to use that disproportionately. So not all, but disproportionately from a population which is Muslims from over 3%. And I think the issue we have is, like I was saying, we've got into a situation where what the left have done is they've designed a mechanism in such a way where if we were to say anything or to basically mention facts, because I don't believe, and I think a lot of people who live in the UK don't believe we are racist, we are homophobia, or anything along the points, but we're just talking about facts. But we don't seem to be able to speak facts anymore. So everything we've said today, or I've said today, is not fiction, it's not made up, these are facts. But
Rav,
we don't
Rav, can I ask you, what's your religion? Do you practice?
I'm Hindu.
You're Hindu, yeah. And
it
is fair to say, is it not, that traditionally, over quite a long time, there's been a huge tension between the Hindu community and the Muslim community?
Yes, there has been. But again, I think there are a lot of good Muslim people out there, and I'd just like to make this point, which is where the differential will come into. And I won't take too much of your time, but I think it's quite important. So, like I would like to say openly, I've got tremendous loads amount of Muslim friends, and they're decent people.
Yep.
However, the important thing to clarify is as follows. So what most of the Muslims in the UK, and a lot of people I talk to, so I'm not going to label everything or everyone, they are classified as liberal Muslims. So by this, what I mean is that they don't follow Islam to the letter. A lot of them haven't read the Quran, but they are classified as Muslim, a bit in a way like Christians, Hindu, myself, or other people. We believe a faith, we believe what it is, but we don't follow things religious to the letter. So that's the first point. However, what we do have to understand is a lot of terrorism and terrorists and so forth that that do these terrible crimes actually do specify that we're Islam and it comes from the Quran, and but we are in a situation where we're shutting that down.
So Rav, you believe, and I'm pleased to hear you saying that you don't want to have a holy war against Islam, because I think if we were to go down that route, I think we'd lose. I think it would be a catastrophe. But you think we need to have a more open and honest debate that disproportionately some bad things are coming from one community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to say that, because we don't want any kind of civil war or anything like that. I know it's quite big to say that. But what I was trying to the point I was trying to make was we do need to have an open conversation, because at the moment, we are, whichever champion, we have been shut down. There's no channel to discuss these things. And there are items and there are various verses that are mentioned which actually do derive hate. And I won't go into too much.
Let's not get too theological, Rav, at this moment in time. But I thank you for the general point that you've made. Rav, they're slightly making an assumption that this is a extreme Islamic attack. It looks like the patterns we've seen in the past, but we don't actually know. And of course, Spain has its own history of terrorism. The Catalan separatists, although it would be, I would have thought, very unlikely that an attack from Catalan separatists would happen actually in the capital of Catalonia. But we don't yet know the full truth. Donald Trump has pronounced, he said the United States condemns the terror attack in Barcelona, Spain, and will do whatever is necessary to help. Be tough and strong. We love you. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:15.
This is LBC. This weekend on the new Sky Sports Premier League channel, can runners-up Tottenham defeat last season's champions Chelsea? And who will win the Battle of the Blues when Man City host Everton at the Etihad? So, what are you waiting for? Upgrade today and watch 126 live games this season on our new channel dedicated to the Premier League. Now for £18 a month. Search New Sky Sports. Cancellation requires 31 days' notice. Further terms apply.
Don't ignore the workplace. It's the law to have a work... Even if you work from home and only employ one person, you'll still need a work... You'll still need to offer a workplace pension. Ah, finally. I got your attention. Don't ignore the workplace pension. It's the law. Get to know your responsibilities with help from the pensions regulator. Visit workplacepensions.gov.uk.
Landlords, Direct Line guarantees to beat other insurers' renewal premiums for the same cover. Can your insurance do that? Switch to Direct Line Landlord. New customers only. Qualifying criteria apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Divorce. It threatens the things you've worked hard for in more ways than you can imagine. Your home, savings, pension, and most of all, your relationship with your children. Don't let divorce cost you any more than it has to. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordellcordell.co.uk. Office in central London. A partner men can count on.
Hello to summer parties and barbecues. Weekends away, just you two. And when it comes to finding something new, start the conversation with Hello You. Sign up and browse profiles for free at helloyoudating.com. Start the conversation today.
At Oak Furnitureland, everyone knows our furniture is 100% solid hardwood. And it's also 50% off. But most importantly, it's 100% solid hardwood.
Yes, but don't forget it's also 50% off.
Make sure you don't miss our red hot savings at Oak Furnitureland, where everything's 100% solid hardwood with up to 50% off. Our unmissable red hot savings end Sunday. Visit oakfurnitureland.co.uk to find your nearest store.
Are you confused about PPI? At PPI Hotline, we want to give you the facts. There is absolutely every reason to check you had PPI. Even if you think you never have, we can help you find out, as you could be owed thousands. And now there's a deadline. We just need the name of the bank you've had loans or credit cards with, and we'll check for free. So find out now if you're owed by texting WIN to 82222.
PPI Hotline. Text WIN to 82222.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Another terror attack using a vehicle, this time a van that is driven at high speed into a crowd of people into the Las Ramblas district of Barcelona. We know that one person is dead, we know 32 are injured, at least 10 of them seriously, and there are stories, not fully confirmed, that there may well be also a hostage situation going on inside a restaurant in Barcelona. Well, I'm saddened, but not surprised by these attacks, I'm afraid, and I have to be honest and say we don't know yet what the source of it is, but there has been a pattern, a steady pattern of these attacks, and we've seen them in France, we've seen it in Germany, and indeed we've seen it here in the United Kingdom. And I'm putting it to you tonight that our politicians seem to have very few answers. I'm wondering what you think we can do to protect ourselves. David says to me by text, he says, Nigel, it may be wise to erect reinforced bollards along each side of the roads to allow pedestrians some protection. It's a radical move, but may help provide a deterrent from those barbaric, cowardly attacks. Well, David, one of the big arguments that I've had over the course of the last few years is with political leaders saying, but Nigel, we need to build bridges, not walls. They've said it to me time and time again when I've argued for being very, very cautious about who we allow into our country. Well, David, your suggestion to some extent has happened already, because on 3 London's bridges, on 3 of those bridges, we have built walls. Yes, we're building walls on bridges. We've done it on 3 of the busiest bridges in London. And if you see them today, there are huge concrete bollards either side. And David says we should do this everywhere. I wonder, David, at what cost that would be? And that is a very real question and a practical question. On Twitter, Andy is very negative. He says, we can't do anything, Nigel. We've entered into a war with terrorists. We have lost, just like we did with the IRA. Andy, who appears to be throwing his hands up, and saying there's nothing we can do. Breaking, Catalan police say no one is being held up inside a bar by armed individuals in Barcelona, contrary to reports from local media. And that was our source for that, local Spanish media telling us there was a hostage situation. That is not the case. So it looks now like it's just one incident we're dealing with here. It's a van. It's being driven at high speed. Somebody estimated as fast as 100 kilometres an hour, 60 miles per hour, that ploughed into a crowd, and a driver who then fled on foot, and we don't yet know whether he's been accosted or not. What we do know is a very large cordon has been put around the Las Ramblas area in Barcelona. What can we do to protect ourselves? Do we as individuals perhaps say to ourselves, I don't know, I'm not so happy visiting this city, or I'm worried about going to London? Or do we just have to shrug that off and get on with life as normal? And I'd love to think we could get on with life as normal. But, you know, even here in London, the capital city of this country, we've now reduced the numbers of days that we do changing of the guard outside Buckingham Palace, and they now have a full armed escort with them. So it's all well and good saying we mustn't allow terrorism to change our way of life. To some extent, it is already. And any of you that are going abroad this year through Britain's airports, or airports anywhere, know that we have to strip off now and take virtually everything off, don't we? Our shoes, our watches, cufflinks if we're wearing them. So our way of life is being changed, but what can we do to make ourselves a little bit safer? Stuart in Carmarthen is my next caller. Stuart, good evening.
Nigel, good to speak to you.
So what would you do, Stuart?
Okay, so, Nigel, first of all, it wouldn't happen imminently, but I think when manufacturers of vehicles are bringing out new cars and vans, they need to utilise the GPS system and create a system so it'll prevent cars from going anywhere where they shouldn't be. So built-up areas, off-road, and that would eliminate potentially this sort of incident. And also, if anyone was taken ill at the wheel, possibly.
I'm not convinced, Stuart, that if you're driving at 60 miles per hour down a road and you then go off it by, you know, a few feet onto a pavement, that any system could stop the car doing that.
It depends. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to totally eliminate it, but I think if the GPS system would control the car so it adheres to the speed limit, for instance, 20 miles an hour in a 20 mile an hour zone, not going to be able to get to 60 miles.
Well, if we finish up, Stuart, as some suggest, with driverless cars, namely that it's all done by a computer, then I suppose you would finish up with cars that went at maximum 30 or 20 or whatever it may be. So we may, in a way, having thought it through for a second, we may, in a way, be heading in that direction. But I suspect that this is a very long way in the future, as you conceded at the start. I just worry short term, what on earth can we do?
Short term, it's a very difficult situation to get any precautions or to put anything in place as well. I think there needs to be more armed police. I think all the police officers should be armed.
Well,
in this country.
Do you know what, Stuart?
That's my personal opinion.
Do you know what, Stuart? Your second point there, I'm now not going to argue the ins and outs of with you, because I am absolutely convinced after what happened on London Bridge, I'm absolutely convinced that if that police officer had been armed, not even necessarily with a gun, but at least with a taser, those three bad guys would have been taken down there and then. As it was, he went up to them, didn't he? You know, with a baton, did his best, but it just simply couldn't be good enough. Thank you very much indeed, Stuart. OK, news coming out now. Catalan police now confirm that actually the number is 13 killed. That's up from 1 earlier. 13 killed. That's what the Catalan police are telling us. 32 injured, 10 of them very seriously. The Catalan police say no one is being held up inside a bar. I repeat that. So it is a one-off incident, but the number of dead has now risen to 13. So it is yet another horrendous attack. Stuart on Facebook says, has anyone claimed it was a lone wolf with mental health problems? No one, Stuart, has claimed anything yet about who it may have been. I will speculate on one thing. The number of injured now has gone up to 50. 13 killed, 50 injured. They're the latest figures we've got from the Catalan police. The only speculation I will make is I'll be very surprised if the person that drove this van wasn't a regular, habitual drug user. And I say that, and one or two people have a sharp intake of breath, but time and again we see with these incidents that it's young males, and very often, yes, they've picked up an extremist ideology. There nearly always seems to be a link with drugs. I'm going to ask Kuram from Slough. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Nigel. First of all, before I get to my point, I just want to give my condolences, and also my prayers are with the victims and their families of what's happened tonight in Barcelona.
Yes, and we will share that.
Second thing, actually, Nigel, you shocked me today, all right? In a good way, not in a bad way, in a good way. And I want to say thank you because, at the beginning of your show, when you started with listing the attacks that have gone on in the last year or so,
yes,
I really believed you were going to miss the attack that happened at Finsbury Park Mosque.
Why?
And you didn't.
Why did you believe that?
I don't know. I'm not much of a fan of yours.
It sounds like you're very prejudiced against me, doesn't it? But anyway.
No, it's not. I'm not prejudiced against anyone. I listen to what people say, and I make an opinion on that. Like today, I've called in and I'm putting my hands up. You shocked me.
Sure. Okay. All right, thank you.
And I'm happy. I'm glad that you did that. I'm very glad of that. And second shock is, I agree with you. I think this is a subject that I think the only way we can resolve this issue is to actually stand up and talk about it, not on a national level, on an international level. It has to be done properly. We need to educate people. I'm Pakistani Muslim, British, born here in the UK, lived here all my life, and I'm British. I don't. When people ask me, I don't say I'm Pakistani because I wasn't born there. I didn't grow up there. This is my homeland. When I go on holiday, when I come back here to the UK, this is where I feel content, where I'm home, all right?
Good.
So I want to make it clear, first of all, it comes down to, you're saying, how do we change what's happening?
Well, I'm saying, Kuram, I'm saying, how do we protect ourselves?
How do we protect ourselves?
Yes.
The only way we protect ourselves is by discussing these issues, because as these things are so random. When I say random, I don't mean that these people are not planning them. I mean that they're so random that intelligent people cannot predict that it's going to happen. They might have someone as a suspect, but they can't predict when they're going to get into a car or rent a van or do something and do that. That can happen in a spare moment. This is, unfortunately, and this brings tears to my eyes, that there's only one way, I feel, to resolve these issues and protect ourselves, and that is by educating people properly. You know, making them understand. Like, I hear people calling in onto this radio station all the time saying that, oh, the Quran says this and the Quran says that.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, the Quran does say this, but if you take a minute and try and understand Islam, Islam is not as literal. You can't take... It's not literal. If you actually study Islam... I went to Islamic boarding school. Never in my life was I taught to kill unbelievers.
No, and Khurram, actually, Khurram, you know, a Christian could take something out of the Old Testament that we'd find pretty shocking today as well. I mean, I understand all of those points. You know, you talked about the need, on an international level, for having an honest conversation about this. Let me ask you quickly, did Donald Trump do that when he went to Riyadh and he said to 50 of the biggest world Muslim leaders, drive out of your places of worship those people that wish the world harm?
He did, and I'm not. Donald Trump is someone else that I don't.
Listen, I'm actually, Khurram.
Right.
I'm actually going to quit. I'm actually going to quit with you while I'm ahead, because you've been nice to me. You've thought Trump might be right, and actually, it is time for the news. Khurram, a very interesting, great phone call there from Khurram in Slough. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on LBC. It's 7:30, and time for the news with Moira Alderson.
It's being reported that at least 13 people have been killed and dozens of others injured in a terror attack in Barcelona. A van's been driven into people on Las Ramblas in the centre of the city. The driver is thought to have fled the scene on foot, but the authorities say a man has now been arrested in connection with the attack. The UK Foreign Office is advising tourists to stay inside and to not go near the scene of the attack. The Prime Minister says her thoughts are with the victims of the terrible attack in Barcelona and that the UK stands with Spain against terror. LBC weather becoming windy across the north and west with some heavy rain tonight. Elsewhere, it'll be drier with a few showers and an overnight low of 15 degrees.
LBC travel in Bedfordshire on the M1 on the southbound side. It's now fully open between junction 12 at Flitwick and junction 11 at Dunstable after an accident. It's still pretty slow though. In Surrey, the A243 is closed in both directions between the Malden Rushet traffic lights and the M25 junction 9 at Leatherhead. That's because of a serious accident. And still big problems in Cheshire. The northbound M6 is closed from junction 19 at Knutsford to junction 20 at the Lim interchange because of repair works on the Thelwall viaduct. It's causing gridlock on surrounding roads throughout North Cheshire. It's likely to be the case late into tonight. LBC Travel, I'm Mark Underhill.
This is LBC.
I'm Nick Ferrari. Throughout 2017, I've been hosting The Best of British, a series of conversations with leaders in the world of business, media and the arts on LBC. Next will be a very special event on the evening of Wednesday the 30th of August at the London Hilton on Park Lane. An audience with former England rugby coach Sir Clive Woodward. Win tickets for you and a guest to be there at lbc.co.uk.
All thanks to Hampton by Hilton, making you welcome at over 2,200 locations worldwide.
Westway, there's no other way.
Save way more with a nearly new delivery miles only bargain from Westway Nissan. Hurry and you'll make incredible RRP savings on selected 66 and 17 plate Nissans, like up to 30% off X-Trails, up to 26% off Micras, up to 35% off Notes, up to 37% off Dukes, and up to 38% off a Qashqai. Be quick, stock is limited, and once they're gone, they're gone. So
Google Westway Nissan today.
I just switched to Vodafone for my home broadband. They're offering unlimited fibre for 18 months with no upfront costs and no line rental for only £25 a month. Switch right now and you can choose a gift worth up to £199. I picked this wicked Sonos speaker.
I think the neighbours love it too. Switch before the 9th of September and you can get one as well.
Search Vodafone Broadband. Vodafone. Power to you. 18-month agreement subject to credit check and availability. New customers only. Gifts valued at RRP. Online redemption required. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/broadband gift.
Moving house. Nightmare. I need a plasterer, plumber, electrician, builder, painter, locksmith, gardener, and somebody to move my valuables, the drinks trolley. Relax, relax. It's Trust a Trader. They have all the tradespeople you can think of, reputable and reviewed, so you always get a job well done.
Well done me, I say, for getting it all sorted. I shall reward myself with a cheeky tipple from the trolley. Chin chin, pass me the gin. Visit trustatrader.com.
Clive, Winston Wolfe. Whale music? You must be one stressed-out private landlord.
Yes, I am!
Your tenants are struggling financially and can't pay their rent. But you're with Direct Line. They'll repay any unpaid rent until your tenants are out. So drop the stress ball. It'll all be over soon. Ah, that's better.
Claim back unpaid rent after 1 month's arrears with rent guarantee. Can your insurance do that? Search Direct Line Landlord. Cover purchased as part of legal expenses add-on. Qualifying criteria apply. Restricted claims for existing tenants in the first 90 days when product first purchased.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
If you're just joining us and haven't heard the news already in the last few hours, a van has driven at approximately 60 miles an hour into a crowd of people in a very upmarket shopping district, Las Ramblas of Barcelona. The latest we have is that 13 people have been killed and 50 have been injured, many of them seriously. We do not know the identity of the attacker. The most that we know is that one person was driving the van and that person escaped from the scene. Whether or not they've subsequently been captured, whether there are other people and accomplices involved, we simply don't know the answers to it. There has been a pattern over the course of the last couple of years where lorries, vans and cars have been used. Indeed, we saw it here in London just a few months ago. And I'm asking the basic question of what can we do to protect ourselves? Do we build a lot more walls on bridges and on roads and around areas where there are large numbers of pedestrians? Do we perhaps think to ourselves, well, perhaps I'll avoid visiting this big city? And on a bigger level, already callers have said, including we had a British Pakistani Muslim caller from Slough, that there needs to be a more honest, open, international debate about the growth of terrorism and how we deal with it. But I'm not telling you what I think, I'm asking you what you think. And Sean from East Ham is my next caller. Sean, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. Pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you. Good evening. So, Sean, what can be done to make us a little bit safer?
Well, I just want to stress one thing before I make my point, which your producer also stressed to me as well, that, as you've said, no one has been found out who it is
yet. Yes.
But I think that the one strange remaining fact out of all of this is that, seeming with all the terrorist attacks that have took place, there's the suspect who has committed the crime has always been known in some capacity to the security services of the country they've committed.
Nearly always, yes. Nearly always. I mean, of the London Bridge attackers, 2 of them were known, 1 of them wasn't actually. But generally, Sean, I would go with that point, yes.
So I think, therefore, 2 key things need to be done to combat the problem, which is, firstly, we need better integration on the part of councils, local communities, and also on the part of the government.
Do you mean, when you say integration, you mean knowledge sharing about who the bad guys potentially are?
Yeah, so that we're in a community where different ethnicities live, that they can feel safe, that if they have a suspicion about their next-door neighbour or the person across the road from them, that they have the sort of gall to stand up and tell the relevant authorities.
Sure, fine, okay. And by the way, I just said bad guys. They could be bad girls as well, I guess. And we have to gender balance this debate, of course. It's quite possible. But, Sean, fine. But, I mean, others would go a bit further than you, Sean. I mean, I've heard people... I mean, bear in mind, there are 3,000 people in this country on a suspect terrorist list, but in total, there are 20,000 people, and the rest of those have known links to people who have been involved with ISIS or ISIS sympathisers. There are some, Sean, who say, in the wake of all these attacks, and actually, even including a former quite highly placed military officer who led our forces for a bit in Afghanistan, that the 3,000 suspected terrorists should simply be rounded up. How would you respond to that?
I think that would be completely the wrong way to go about it, because I think that wouldn't help it at all. It would just fuel the fire more. I think it would just make more anti-Muslim sentiment than there already is in the country, because I think that by him saying that, it wouldn't help the situation. It would just make it worse.
OK, but you think there needs to be a lot more linkage between government at all levels as to who these people are, where they are and what they're doing. The trouble is, Sean, we simply don't have security services big enough, do we, to constantly track 3,000 people?
But I also think the other thing that needs to be done is the horrendous scheme that David Cameron thought was a good idea to combat this kind of terrorism, the PREVENT scheme, where he opened this scheme to sort of help stop radicalising young people from going into these ideologies. But if you see the facts, it's just made it worse and hasn't made any effect at all.
Yeah. No, I think PREVENT failed. I would agree with that. Sean, I thank you very much indeed. A point that gets made here that's been missed so far, and I thought somebody would say it, the other recent terror attack using a vehicle was, of course, in Charlottesville, USA. A US problem as well as a European one. We have to work with the Americans too to find solutions, says Dan. Point very well made. And Kathy makes the point that I made earlier, that the trouble is there are too many people on drugs these days, and that needs addressing in a big way. We have too much lawlessness in this country. And she makes that point, and it's a theme that I've returned to again and again on this show, that nearly every time we see these attacks, in 90% of the cases we find it is young men who've been radicalised, religiously, but they also are heavy, repetitive users of mind-altering drugs. And that's the pattern we've seen again and again and again. And a further point that our last caller made, nearly always too, they're on a known police list of some kind. I don't know whether Barcelona will turn out to be the same way, but I have to say, somehow in my heart, I'd be surprised if that wasn't the case. Ali in Wimbledon, good evening.
Hi, Nigel.
What can we do, Ali? How do we make ourselves a bit safer?
Well, the problem is that I think that the current trend is that the people that are doing this have become self-radicalised. I think you'll find the majority of the imams and the majority of the mosques and the majority of Muslims in this country condemn this and reject these acts. However, you'll still find an individual who has been self-radicalised over the internet, over social media. It's very easy to tap into ISIS messages and other messages, radicalise yourself and believe that you can carry out this type of action. It takes one person to cause complete carnage. So even though 99% of the people are rejecting it and condemning it, it just takes one person to carry out such an act who's being self-radicalised over the internet. And that's what you find with a lot of these guys. As you say, they're young, impressionable. They're hearing these messages, which are quite powerful on social media, and one day they wake up and think, I'll just go ahead and do this. Because the other thing they're shown on social media and on YouTube and places is the death and destruction of Muslims in the Middle East through these the wars that the West have, the invasions and the wars the West are involved in the Middle East. And that's the main message that's pushed to these guys, that, look, your fellow Muslims are being butchered in these countries, and you have to carry out some sort of retribution. So it's not even that they're religiously indoctrinated, and they're giving all the proofs and the Quranic verses for doing this. They're just showing simple images. And that's enough to radicalise these people to commit these acts.
And it is likely, Ali, isn't it, that you talk about self-radicalisation. The kind of person who is more likely, I would have thought, to be self-radicalised is somebody who perhaps didn't do very well in terms of education, who probably hasn't got a job, or perhaps not a very good job, or one they like. Somebody, and I'm going to say it again, somebody who is a repetitive, heavy user of drugs, and they are more likely to be self-radicalised. In fact, Trump Trump called them losers, didn't he? He said the people, these terrorists, he called them losers. So I can see what you're saying about self-radicalisation, and it's a point very well made. The only slightly depressing thing, Ali, is how on earth, I mean, without controlling the internet, which clearly in a free society we're not going to want to do, what do we do about it?
Well, it's extremely difficult. I rang up and mentioned these points before. I think the so-called Salafi Wahhabi scholars that they're marginalised by the government. They've been pushed to the side, and the government has pushed or promoted so-called liberal Muslims who have absolutely no credibility within the Muslim community, like sort of Majid Nawaz and others, have zero credibility, which is why the government has cut their funding. Has cut the funding of organisations like Quilliam because they're having no results in the Muslim community. The government needs to engage the Salafi Wahhabi scholars who have some sort of influence over the people who are likely to carry out these acts. Yet the government they label these people as extremists and refuse to engage with them. And they are the people who can actually make a difference. And
Well,
this is
Ali, no, that's a very interesting point. And as far as Majid Nawaz is concerned, he, of course, is going to be tomorrow on LBC from 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. And Ali, ring him, talk to him. He certainly has some very strong views on this and says things on the issues of radicalisation that are, pretty far out there. I mean, it takes, I think, quite a lot of guts to say what he says. Ali, I thank you very much indeed for your call. I get a text from Dartford. I wonder if these people were known to the authorities. Most probably. Yep, I agree. Whoever you are from Dartford, most probably. Matt in Seven Kings, good evening.
Evening, Nigel. Pleasure to talk to you, mate.
Pleasure to talk to you. So what do we do? I mean, the last caller, Ali, actually made a really good point. He said there's a lot of self-radicalisation, but barring shutting down the internet, I'm not sure what we do about that. Give us one idea, Matt, that could make us safer.
Well, I mean, to be honest, the reason why I was ringing, Nigel, I was listening to a professor who Ian Dale was speaking to before, and he was talking about, how we must give more of our civil liberties away, our privacy laws away, and, I just wonder sometimes that these young men, Muslim men, who are going to these Middle Eastern countries and coming back battle-hardy, our intelligence services are allowing these young battle-hardy men to come back into European countries, into our countries, knowing quite well that, at some stage there's a very good chance that, they're going to do something really bad.
So stop them coming back, Matt, yeah?
Well, but the broader point that I'm getting to, when we hear of these attacks, our politicians and, professors like, the professor who was speaking to Ian Dale, saying that we must give more of our civil liberties away, more of our privacy laws away. It seems very, very Orwellian to me, what I mean? Call me paranoid or...
No, I don't. I think a lot of us feel like this. A lot of us are worried about our civil liberties, and actually what we should be doing is using the basic tools available to us. Matt, I thank you very much indeed, and Matt makes the point about people coming back in. I have been screaming about this for years, that anybody that goes to fight for ISIS in Syria should not be let back in our country. And so far, we've managed to stop the grand total of... 1. That's right, 1. And hundreds of others have come back and are living in our communities. Right now, you're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:46.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Out of her job, Sarah championed the Labour MP Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader, telling her to resign from the shadow cabinet or be sacked 5 days after she wrote in the Sun newspaper that Britain had a, quote, problem with Pakistani men targeting vulnerable girls. Sammy Woodhouse, who is a child abuse survivor and campaigner.
I personally don't think it's a racist comment what Sarah said. She's always been very open and said that, child abuse for the country is an issue. But what she's done is address something that we have seen evidence of. It's a clear pattern throughout the country.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Hampton by Hilton. Book direct for the lowest price.
Every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
This weekend on the new Sky Sports Premier League channel, can runners-up Tottenham defeat last season's champions Chelsea? And who will win the Battle of the Blues when Man City host Everton at the Etihad? So, what are you waiting for? Upgrade today and watch 126 live games this season on our new channel dedicated to the Premier League. Now for £18 a month. Search New Sky Sports. Cancellation requires 31 days notice. Further terms apply.
We asked people to put a price on their hearing. One reply said £100 trillion because I love music and languages. Another said, priceless. Who wouldn't want to hear their grandchildren laughing? We know how much you value your hearing. That's why at Boots we have interest-free monthly payment plans available to make the right hearing solution for you even more affordable. Boots, let's feel good. Subject to status, over 18s only. Terms and conditions apply.
You can earn more with a degree.
And you can get a degree in just 2 years with a course at GSM London.
Degrees are awarded by Plymouth University, and if you don't have a formal qualification, you can start on our foundation year.
Places are available for September at our Greenford and Greenwich campuses.
Enroll now. Text GSM to 66777
Or visit gsmlondon.ac.uk.
GSM London.
Have bold dreams.
Hi, I'm Michael Owen and I know what it's like to be injured. If you've been injured and it's not your fault, you need to speak to Gowing Law. Text WIN to 80800 and Gowing Law will do the rest.
Thanks, Michael. If you've been injured on the road or at work, Gowing Law could help you win thousands in compensation. We can tell you instantly what you might be owed. Find out right now and text WIN to 80800.
Pets, we positively love them. So for those times they're feeling rough, get pet insurance from Pets in a Pickle. Go to petsinnapickle.co.uk. This deserves your interest. Introducing the new innovative finance ISA from award-winning peer-to-peer platform Cufflink. Earn up to 5% gross interest per annum by investing your tax-free allowance or transferring in from your current cash or stocks and shares ISA. Start now at isatogether.co.uk. Cufflink is not a bank but is regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Past returns are not necessarily a guide to future returns. Your capital is at risk. Maximum interest rate subject to 3-year fixed term.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
If you're just tuning in, there has been a terrorist attack today in Barcelona in the Las Ramblas shopping area, a very big touristy area. 13 people have been killed, 50 have been injured as a van at high speed, about 60 miles per hour, drove into a crowd. The driver got away on foot, and we are debating what can be done to make us safer. I was making the point, there is a regular... We don't know the identity of this driver, but the point I'm making is there is a regular pattern to these attacks that applies in about 90% of cases. It is that the murderers are young males who have been religiously radicalised, are known to the authorities already, and always have a drug problem. Lee on Facebook disagrees with me completely. He says people have taken all sorts of drugs over the years, but not all wanted to kill anyone. All right, Lee, fine, but you tell me why, matey. In this situation, there seems to be such a close linkage between the two. Maybe Ali, who phoned in and talked about self-radicalisation, maybe it is people who are on drugs, out of work, living on benefit, with too much time on their hands, are spending too much time looking at bad stuff on the internet. Maybe, Lee, that's the distinction. I don't know. I'm merely speculating. On Twitter, I get... Practically, the way to stay safe is to stay away from the bigger cities. It's difficult. It's too late. Well, Angelina on Twitter, we could all avoid the major cities, but in practical terms, this is where people earn their money. It's where they go to visit. I don't see it really happening. The way to be safer is for the communities where these terrorists come from to be observant and to report them. And yes, that is something that is being encouraged at every level. We need zero tolerance. If the government knows of radicals and doesn't remove them from this country, and these people then kill, the government is guilty of aiding and abetting, says Steve from Sutton. Well, Steve, there are 3,000 suspected terrorists living in this country now. I think there's a growing body that thinks they should just be put in prison. I'm not saying I'm one of them, but it is an argument that's out there. Katie from Twickenham. Good evening, Katie.
Hi, Nigel. Just phoning in, maybe I was a bit like Lee with the caller with the sharp intake of breath, as you said about being a potential drug user.
Yeah.
But on a bit of reflection and sort of thinking about it, there may be something in that, and not necessarily in this case, but as someone who's done my prevent training and I work in an NHS environment, I think, education is important. It's really important. And picking up on what Kareem said, and for the criticism of prevent, there are some really good messages in there for the public, I think, to be prepared. So if I could elaborate a bit, you might be looking for, like you say, a vulnerable young man, social issues. One of the factors you might be looking at is, are they using drugs with an older male?
Yeah.
And those social issues. So there is the potential there. And I think that everybody can be vigilant and know what's going on in their communities and look out for multiple signs, really.
How many people, Katie, how many people out there are trained in the Prevent programme that Cameron brought in?
Goodness knows. I wouldn't like to guess because I wouldn't know the answer.
I mean, is it a lot of people?
Yeah, I think there probably are, especially within, school settings, NHS settings.
Yeah.
That training, is mandatory, and I think it's useful.
Okay, so Katie, what you're saying is I've been a bit too critical of it, have I?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think we can criticise some elements of it, but I think the message as well, even for the general public, on looking out for signs, and raising flags to authorities is helpful.
Okay.
Because it's one of the only ways we can, sort of help ourselves and prepare ourselves.
Okay, Katie, no, I take the point, and I take it, thank you. I won't completely condemn Prevent, because perhaps it helps a bit. I don't know. Now, we have Barbara Lucian is my next caller from Dollis Hill. Good evening.
Hello, matey, how are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you. So, how are you going to make yourself safe? How are you going to make the world safer? Come on.
Well, what I would do if I was in charge is, to begin with, I would address the herd of elephants that are in the room, because what I think's really lacking here, and there are meant to be so many intelligent, great minds leading all of these countries, particularly in the Western world. What I would do is actually address the real issues. Something my mum said when I was a small boy and I was being raised, when she raised me, was prevention's always better than cure.
Yep.
And I really think that's what needs to be applied here, because we can sit here and we can talk about, building walls, we can talk about sat-nav, we can talk about all these crazy solutions, yeah? Let's get to the source of the problem. Let's really look at why this is happening. And again, hindsight, I'm just going to flick through my points quickly, because hindsight, it's a great teacher. But the way I see it, the West appear to be the pupils in the room that are naughty and they don't want to learn. And, because they don't want to learn, they're being disruptive to all the other pupils in the class. And when they're out in the playground, they're out bullying the other pupils. That's, on the macro level, that's how I actually see it. So what really I think needs to happen here is a spade needs to be called a spade. We need to put up our hands and say, you know what? Okay, especially like with a lot of many African countries, we actually need your resources, more than you realise, more than you need us, right? So we're going to give you a fair price. We're going to pay you properly for your resources. Again, dealing with countries like West Africa.
Right. So just to be clear, the point you're making is, if we were fairer with the poorer third world countries, we would not have the mass migrations of people coming here.
I'm not even saying that. That's part. I think that's a small part of the issue. The real crux of the matter, I think, here is, and again, like I was going to say, in terms of actually learning and hindsight, we had this issue back in the 70s with the IRA. Didn't matter what we did, they got round it. And you can't fight what you can't see. Therefore, you're going to have to eventually sit down like big men and have a conversation and deal with the matters at hand. Not, going around bombing countries, stealing resources, and it's not doing anything.
Okay, a different approach. I thank you, Barbara Lucian from Dollis Hill, for that. And my last caller of this evening is Christine. Christine, good evening.
Hello, Nigel. Pleasure to speak to you. Well, I'm actually calling, I think, in response to an earlier caller. I think he was called Ali, who suggested that a possible solution to addressing the young people in this country is by seeking out the Wahhabi scholars for their wisdom on this, because they, quote unquote, will understand these young people and can talk to them. Instead of, he spoke in derogatory terms about your colleague on the station, Majid, who represents a view that if Islam is being dangerously, the problem in this country is Wahhabism has turned Islam more and more to a conservative view, which is totally in opposition to living within a Western country.
Christine, I'm going to stop you there.
They need to adapt.
I'm going to stop you there, Christine, because you made that point so powerfully, and I have to tell you, I agree with it incredibly strongly. Thank you. We do not know who drove that van, but we've seen these patterns before. What can we do to make ourselves safer? Well, I have to say, and I'm going to go back to this, but Trump was elected on fighting ISIS and Islam, and his speech in Riyadh about challenging the Muslim churches to drive out of their places of worship bad people was a good one. In this country, one little thing I would do, make sure every police officer is armed at least with a taser, so when these horrible things happen, we can deal with it quickly. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm back on the 28th of August, which is a bank holiday Monday. In the meantime, Ian Collins will be here from 10, but with continued coverage